If you turn 35, your body just isn't working like it used to. Nobody's listening to you about your hormones. And doctors are telling you that hot flashes, brain fog, low sex drive, sleepless nights, belly fat gain, and low energy are normal. I'm gonna need you to stop doing whatever you're doing right now and listen to what I'm about to tell you, because it could mean the difference between a high quality of life for you or continuing the inevitable misery of hormone imbalance. And meanwhile, the information that could completely change all of that is right here for you to watch. Now, before I go any further, I want to address the big, white, blonde elephant in the room, which is, who the hell does this arrogant Chad covered in Marvel tattoos think he is talking about women's hormones and things he'll never go through, like perimenopause? Yet another smooth-talking, narcissistic, egotistical, predatory male influencer taking advantage of vulnerable women so he can make money off their ignorance in an algorithm filled with scam artists selling cures for imaginary diseases, and the only thing getting weight loss results is your purse. Give me one good reason not to click off this video right now. Hey, I get it. Don't worry. I'll address that too. Here's my promise for this video. I'm going to tell you more about your hormones in the next few minutes than any physician will. I'm going to tell you why you're feeling what you're feeling in your 30s, the exact hormones that will start to decline when you approach age 40 and beyond, and exactly what to do about it so that when perimenopause hits, you don't descend into hormonal hell like your female counterparts, and instead, feel better than you did in your 20s. I'm also going to reveal the truth about synthetic progestins, aka birth control, and give you a solution for PCOS and hypothyroidism you won't find anywhere else. Your hormonal health dictates your entire quality of life and long-term health outcomes. But getting the right information about women's hormones with the medical literature to back it up is like finding a man who's interested in going to therapy or who doesn't piss on the toilet seat. It's hard to find if you don't know where to look. Look no further, you are here, and your hormonal harmony awaits. Let's dive in. Why do things change in your mid-30s? What happens during these years that makes fat burning and developing muscle so damn difficult? There's a lot of content and information out there about menopause, which usually impacts women between the ages of 40 and 50. But we rarely hear anyone talking about what happens prior to menopause, between the ages of 35 and 40 usually, when many women experience the yo-yo impact of hormones going up and down and report symptoms very similar to the ones reported during menopause. The reality is, although the biggest impact on hormones and quality of life happens during menopause, things start changing hormonally well before menopausal age. There's a few differences between perimenopause and menopause, but the biggest difference usually is estradiol. Now, you may be thinking, what's the difference between estrogen and estradiol? Time for school. Estrogen is actually a class of hormones, including estrone, E1, estradiol, E2, and estriol, E3. Estradiol is the most potent form of estrogen found in the body during reproductive years, and it's produced in the ovaries, the adrenal glands, the liver, breasts, and brain, and during pregnancy, the placenta. Outside of a total hysterectomy where the ovaries are removed, women have estradiol in their bodies until menopausal age. So contrary to popular belief, the symptoms experienced during perimenopause, such as hot flashes, night sleeplessness, irregular periods, vaginal dryness, skin and hair changes, irritability, decreased sex drive, weight gain, brain fog, fatigue, and night sweats, these aren't actually caused by low estrogen. In fact, and hardly anyone will tell you this, perimenopausal women typically have abnormally high estrogen. This is caused by the loss of the inhibin protein, which is secreted by the granulosa cells. Inhibin regulates follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH. So when you lose inhibin during perimenopause, FSH rises, which causes a rise in estrogen relative to progesterone. Aside from specific cases where estradiol is low due to an oophorectomy, which is the removal of the ovaries, women in perimenopause typically should not be treated with estradiol, and doing so would only worsen symptoms. Typically, the main hormone that declines during perimenopause is progesterone. Progesterone is every bit as important as estradiol, as it is synergistic to estradiol's positive impacts on bones, lipids, heart, and the brain. Progesterone is also protective against breast cancer, and this impact is doubled with optimal levels of estradiol. Progesterone also stimulates GABA receptors in the brain and has antidepressant effects, making it super important postpartum. For optimal health and quality of life, all women need optimal levels of progesterone. This goes for postpartum, premenopause, perimenopause, and menopause, Hence why micronized bioidentical progesterone is the most common hormone we use with clients at SLAE Hormone Solutions. Progesterone is only secreted by the ovaries, hence why menopausal levels are 0, and also why women who have undergone an oophorectomy and who desire estradiol replacement therapy must have progesterone replacement as well for the synergistic health benefits of both. PMS symptoms are primarily linked to progesterone declining around day 25 of the menstrual cycle. So replacing with bioidentical progesterone has a profound impact on these symptoms, especially when periods start to become irregular around perimenopause. Progesterone also plays a huge role in falling asleep and getting ample amounts of deep sleep. Hence why women in perimenopause typically struggle with night sweats and sleeplessness. There are progesterone receptors around the entire body, which is why having plentiful amounts of progesterone in your body has such a profound impact on your entire quality of life, and why perimenopausal symptoms can be so hellish when progesterone starts to decline during this phase of life for women. I feel like now is a good time to make a very, very important distinction between synthetic hormones and bioidentical hormones. The following information is something you're very unlikely to get from your OB or PCP, and it could very well make or break your long-term health and quality of life after the age of 35. A bioidentical hormone is isomolecular, meaning it has the same molecular structure as the hormones in your body. Bioidentical hormones are metabolized by normal metabolic pathways, and therefore have the most benefits and little to no risks or side effects when compared to synthetic hormones. A synthetic hormone wants to fill the same receptor sites on your body that take in the hormone, but it's not a guarantee that a synthetic molecule is going to behave in your body the same way as a biologically identical version of that hormone would. When it comes to progesterone, we have to understand there is a huge difference between a synthetic progestin and bioidentical progesterone. I ran a poll on my Instagram and asked the following question of my predominantly female audience. I said, those of you who have taken birth control, how many of you were told by your doctor that it was progesterone, aka not a synthetic progestin? Of my 225,000 follower audience on Instagram, 36% of you answered yes, they called it progesterone. 6% of you said no, they told me it was a progestin. 59% of you answered, they didn't tell me either, they just pushed birth control on me. Here's why this is very concerning. The risks and adverse side effects you hear about, including depression, cardiovascular disease, blood clots, heart attack, breast cancer risks, weight gain, liver and eye problems, are primarily associated with synthetic progestins, not bioidentical progesterone. Examples of first-generation synthetic progestins are norethindrone, norethindrone acetate, ethanodiol diacetate, and medroxyprogesterone acetate, aka MPA. MPA is actually an artificial progestogen, and as such activates the progesterone receptor, which is the biological target of progesterone. But it also has androgenic activity, which is the development of male characteristics, and weak glucocorticoid activity, which is immunosuppressive activity. Due to its progestogenic activity, MPA decreases the body's release of gonadotropins and can suppress sex hormone levels. Guess which brand name contraceptive contains MPA? Depo-Provera. How many of you watching this right now have been prescribed Depo-Provera? Yeah, thought so. Second generation progestins include Norgestrel and Levonorgestrel. Third generation progestins include Desogestrel, Gestodine, and Norgestimate. If any of these sound familiar, it's because many of these are in birth control. That's right, birth control is not progesterone, but synthetic progestins with all of the aforementioned risks associated with their use. Vasectomies are sounding better by the day. Progestins are not progesterone, and they do not tell our body to do the same things that our hormones that we're born with do. So you might ask yourself, why would providers even offer synthetic progestins if they're associated with these risks? Why doesn't everyone offer bioidentical hormones instead? The answer to this might get me canceled, but here it is. The information that would lead you to better long-term health outcomes and the highest quality of life has been purposely suppressed by large medical entities and pharmaceutical companies that make a huge profit from patented synthetic hormones, period. And to that you might respond, well, but most bioidentical hormones aren't FDA approved. Here's where things get interesting. When you research why most bioidentical hormones aren't FDA approved, the only reason you can find is many major medical groups do not support using them because not enough is known about their safety and long-term effects. Those major medical groups are the National Institute of Health and the Institute of Medicine, who claim that there's no long-term data on bioidentical hormones. That's weird because there's actually a metric shit ton of medical literature on the tremendous benefits of bioidentical hormones and their massive impact on long-term health outcomes with women. According to the actual medical literature on BHRT, which I have freely available listed on the SLAE website under the BHRT data tab, we see a 75% decrease in age-related macular degeneration in estradiol users versus women who never used BHRT. Women who use bioidentical hormones have a 30 to 50% lower all-cause mortality rate than those not using BHRT. BHRT use is associated with a net benefit for nearly all women. Bottom line, women who use bioidentical hormones live longer, healthier, happier lives than those who do not. The FDA-approved synthetic hormones carry the risks I've outlined in this video. Their bioidentical alternatives do not, and provide tremendous health benefits and massive improvements in quality of life instead. So we have to ask ourselves, why would major medical groups not advocate the use of bioidentical hormones and outright lie about the existence of evidence showing long-term health outcomes? Pharmaceutical companies and the NIH have suppressed studies showing the benefits of bioidentical hormones because compounded bioidentical hormones cannot be patented and therefore are less profitable than their patented synthetic alternatives. Just got to follow the money on this one to see that large pharmaceutical entities would rather push side effect-inducing, life-shortening, but patentable synthetic drugs over healthy, longevity-producing bioidentical hormones that are supported by the most current medical literature, freely available on our BHRT data tab at SLAEHormoneSolutions.com. When it comes to concerns about dosages and quality of compounded hormones, many pharmacies that do provide bioidentical hormones are in fact FDA regulated. On top of that, you want to make sure that your provider works with pharmacies that hold PCAB accreditation. The Pharmacy Compounding Accreditation Board assesses pharmacies for compliance and their commitment to continuous quality improvement. PCAB accreditation demonstrates a pharmacy's commitment to meeting the highest industry standards. As long as the compounding pharmacy you use holds a PCAB accreditation, you're good. Although some pharmacies have engaged in poor compounding practices that have resulted in drug quality problems, such as a drug that contains too little or too much of an active ingredient, at SLAE Hormone Solutions, we only work with FDA-regulated, PCAB-accredited pharmacies to ensure our clients get the highest quality bioidentical hormones. It's more expensive for us to work with FDA-regulated, PCAB-accredited pharmacies, but I would rather have a smaller profit margin if it guarantees the safety and quality of the hormones we provide our clients. The big takeaways here: know the difference between a bioidentical hormone and a synthetic hormone, and don't let a provider or influencer or physician on any kind of platform engage you to believe that a patented pharmaceutical commercial product is the same as your own hormones. Arm yourself with the right information on compounded bioidentical hormones and compounding pharmacies so you can make the best decision for your long-term health. There's always cheaper routes. That doesn't mean it's the safest or most quality route for you. If a provider says things like hormones are hormones, they tell you birth control is progesterone when it's actually a synthetic progestin, says the risks are the same, fights you on lab work, or treats solely based on lab values, it's likely that they either haven't been educated on bioidentical hormones or they just don't care to do so. And I encourage you to advocate for yourself and get a doctor who is experienced in the BHRT space and who treats the client in the symptoms, not the lab work. Aside from progesterone, there are a few other hormones that have a huge impact on your quality of life during perimenopause. Women are 7 times more likely to be diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and up to 26% of women worldwide are diagnosed with the most prevalent endocrine disorder, PCOS, which is also the preeminent cause of infertility. I'm going to tell you how to drastically minimize the symptoms of PCOS, hypothyroidism, and insulin resistance. Crash course on thyroid hormone deficiency, and hypothyroidism that you're not going to get from your doctor. Your thyroid determines a plethora of things in your body and quality of life, such as temperature, metabolism, cerebral function, energy. It increases metabolism and lipolysis, thereby resulting in weight loss, as well as lower cholesterol levels. It protects against cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment, fatigue, weight gain, and memory loss. It decreases dyslipidemia, which is abnormal levels of lipids in the bloodstream, which poses a significant risk factor for cardiovascular disease, decreases visceral fat, increases sex hormone binding globulin, and reduces insulin resistance. So how does the thyroid work? Your pituitary gland is located at the base of your brain, behind the bridge of your nose, below the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland sends thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, to the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped gland, in your throat. Your thyroid gland produces T4, which is inactive thyroid hormone, and T3, which is active thyroid hormone. How much of each your thyroid gland produces is based on how much TSH it's receiving from the pituitary gland. T3 is metabolically active, meaning it drives metabolism. So the higher your T3 is, generally the higher your basal metabolic rate will be. Your basal metabolic rate determines how many calories your body burns at rest, just functioning. T4 has to be converted to T3 outside of the thyroid gland in the liver, gut, and other organs to a lesser degree. So based on how much circulating T3 you have, plus how much T4 you're converting to T3, will determine a lot about your overall health and quality of life. Here's where things get tricky, and I really need you to pay attention so you can advocate for yourself, because most doctors don't understand what I'm about to tell you. There is a difference between hypothyroidism and thyroid hormone deficiency. When looking at lab work, doctors are trained in med school to look at the ratio of TSH to T4 to diagnose hypothyroidism. Lab work is decent for diagnosing, but not so good for treating symptoms over time. At SLAE Hormone Solutions, we treat the client and the symptoms, not the lab work. And I encourage you to find a provider who will operate with the same philosophy if you're not already a SLAE client by the end of this video. If your TSA is at the high end of the range and your T4 is at the low end of the range on lab work, this basically means your pituitary gland is having to work harder and pump extra TSH to the thyroid gland. The traditional way of treating this is prescribing Synthroid or levothyroxine, which is just T4, inactive thyroid hormone. The thought process is that now your body will have some assistance in the means of extra T4 to then convert to T3. Problem solved, right? Well, for thousands of people who are prescribed Synthroid and remain symptomatic, the answer is hell no. Why? Well, as I said earlier, T3 is the hormone that dictates your metabolism and quality of life, not T4. Your body converts T4 to T3 outside the thyroid. So if someone has a conversion issue, prescribing T4 will do nothing. Receptor site downregulation, which is where the hormone doesn't bind at the receptor, and not hormone levels themselves, likely account for the symptoms of hormone deficiency, which is why people still have symptoms of hormone deficiency despite having normal levels, and why the traditional practice of prescribing T4 doesn't improve symptoms in thousands of women. Furthermore, in people over 40, Synthroid can suppress the enzyme responsible for conversion called deiodinase. Raising thyroid hormone up to optimal levels upregulates receptor sites, which accounts for improvement of symptoms and well-being even though baseline levels were normal. Based on the literature, hormone levels do not always correlate with symptoms, and everyone's receptor sites are different. Our philosophy at SLAE is don't treat the lab test, treat the client and the symptoms. So while the hypothyroidism may be rectified according to lab work, if you're still symptomatic, this is thyroid hormone deficiency. And this refers to the deficiency of T3, active thyroid hormone. The solution here is compounded desiccated thyroid containing both T3 and T4. There are many solutions out there that contain both thyroid hormones like Armour Thyroid, Nature Thyroid, and NP Thyroid. With optimal levels of T3, symptoms of thyroid deficiency improve. Bear in mind that the reference ranges on hormone lab work are based on the average hormone levels of a sickly, elderly populace, not a healthy, thriving one. So just because you fall between two hash marks on lab work and are thus deemed normal by med school standards, that doesn't mean that that will equate to you feeling normal. Normal is a washing machine setting, not a gauge of a woman's quality of life. And while hypothyroidism diagnosis is primarily based on lab work, thyroid deficiency is based on symptoms. There are over 200 symptoms related to thyroid hormone deficiency, including thin hair and nails and poor skin quality no matter what you do, weight gain and increased body fat no matter what you do, loss of energy and motivation, loss of cognition and memory, poor sense of well-being, depression, menstrual irregularities, bowel dysfunction, constipation. So if you're experiencing any of those, especially those of you who are already on a thyroid medication, like Synthroid, only for a doctor to shrug their shoulders because they've reached the extent of their education, advocate for yourself, work with someone who understands thyroid hormone optimization, like our medical team at SLAE, so you don't go down the rabbit hole of getting prescribed something that might not even fix the problem and you remain miserable. At SLAE, we use compounded desiccated thyroid containing both T3 and T4 to actually address symptoms and have dramatic carryover into other conditions, such as insulin resistance and PCOS. For more context on this huge issue that's impacting thousands of women with thyroid hormone deficiency, I recommend reading the book Rethinking Hypothyroidism by Dr. Antonio Bianco. In addition to hypothyroidism, conditions like PCOS and insulin resistance are becoming more and more prevalent in women between the ages of 35 and 40. Doctors usually attempt to solve the symptoms of PCOS by using things like metformin and inositol, but these things only address the symptoms while completely overlooking the root of the symptoms. If you have PCOS or insulin resistance, you're going to want to pay attention to this next part. What most people don't know is how closely intertwined PCOS and insulin resistance are. When you have insulin resistance, it can lead to the accrual of visceral fat or intra-abdominal fat, which is concentrated in the center of the body around the liver, intestine, and other organs. Visceral fat is extremely difficult to lose, and symptoms of insulin resistance can only be alleviated if visceral fat is also being reduced. If you have deficient or suboptimal levels of free T3, reducing that visceral fat is going to be damn near impossible. When we're able to optimize free T3 levels, not only do we improve symptoms of thyroid hormone deficiency, we're able to reduce visceral fat and therefore reverse insulin resistance. Reversing insulin resistance has a profound effect on symptoms of PCOS. In addition to that, as many of you know, PCOS can also be associated with increased testosterone levels. This is because of decreased levels of sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. SHBG binds to free testosterone, keeping it within range. So when there's less SHBG, there's generally more free testosterone. Optimizing thyroid hormone actually increases SHBG levels, therefore reducing excess free testosterone. So optimizing active thyroid hormone actually has a twofold impact on PCOS symptoms by reversing insulin resistance and increasing SHBG levels to reduce excess free testosterone. Mind blown yet? By this point, you might be asking yourself, where the hell can I get these bioidentical hormones you're talking about? My doctor won't even talk to me about them or get lab work or really anything. Well, luckily, I have a solution for that. Maybe you can relate to this experience that the majority of the women that I work with inevitably go through. So it starts with you feeling pretty shitty, right? Like your world has been turned upside down. You're not sleeping, you're getting hot flashes, vaginal dryness, you're moody, you're irritable, PMS symptoms are getting worse, there's all kinds of temperature dysregulation. And so you think, this must be my hormones, I need to get checked out, or I need to at least get to the bottom of what is going on with me. First, you have to call and go through the menu, and then hope they can even fit you in the schedule in the next 90 days, which means 90 more days of hot flashes, vaginal atrophy, fatigue, poor sleep, brain fog, the whole nine. Then the day finally comes. If they even remember why you're there, you likely have paperwork to fill out. Then it's an hour plus wait until the doctor can see you. The average patient visit is about 14 minutes, but let's be generous and say you get about 20 minutes with this person. In those 20 minutes, you list off every symptom you're experiencing. They nod their head, maybe listen, maybe not. And then when you're done, they do one of two things. Either tell you that perimenopause is normal and you just have to deal with it, or they suggest an antidepressant or SSRI because you seem depressed. The odds of them suggesting lab work are very slim, and the odds of them knowing how to interpret said lab work are even slimmer. If you're educated and request things like a full thyroid panel, they dismiss you and tell you it's not necessary. So you leave defeated, frustrated, and feeling more defeated than when you arrived. Then there's copays, wrestling with your insurance company, waiting at pharmacies, no contact with your doctor unless you schedule another appointment 90 days out. And meanwhile, you stay suffering with hormone deficiency that hardly anyone is trained to treat or even knows exists. After hearing thousands of women describe this dynamic that brought me to tears on several occasions, I thought to myself, what if you were to ask your physician the following question? If a man came to you with low testosterone, resulting in low energy, decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, and increased body fat, would you prescribe him testosterone? You would. And why is that? Oh, because having low testosterone puts men at higher risk of having prostate cancer, insulin resistance, and earlier mortality, while having optimal levels of testosterone decreases all those risks and increases quality of life across the board. So then, why can't women have access to that same quality of care? Why is it that men get instant access to hormone therapy and women have to offer their firstborn a kidney and jump through a million hoops just to get a doctor to listen? Well, I got sick and tired of it for you, and I decided to create a solution for women's hormones where you get the quality of care you need without all the bullshit. Here's what we do differently at SLAE so you don't have to experience any of that. Instead of having to schedule an appointment 90 days out, endure hours in the waiting room, and then spend 15 minutes with a doctor who may or may not even know how to treat your symptoms, you get a specialized medical team in the palm of your hand who will not only listen to your symptoms, but will know exactly how to treat and optimize. Finally, everyone's on your team. so you can thrive. You get affordable, specific lab work based on age and symptoms. For instance, if you're under the age of 40, we won't run estradiol because generally women don't need estradiol prior to the age of 40, which means you only, as opposed to a $350 Dutch test that's a bunch of shit that you don't actually need, you get one-on-one telemed consultations so you don't get blindfolded into taking medication you don't understand. We want to educate you on exactly what is happening in your body, so you're empowered to make the best decision for you and your quality of life. Your hormones are shipped directly to your door, so no worries about driving and waiting at the pharmacy after waiting in traffic for 90 minutes. And your refills are on autopilot, so you never miss a dose. We take care of everything for you. So instead of getting pushed out 3 months for an appointment at an office where they don't even remember your name, you get your own specialized team every step of the way. And you get follow-up labs and access to our team for an entire year to make sure you're supported and getting the results you want. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds really comprehensive, aka expensive. I got 3 kids in school. What is this gonna cost me? Remember everything I just went over in terms of convenience, time, and quality of care. While insurance doesn't usually cover bioidentical hormones due to the reasons I outlined earlier in this video, you get immediate access to quality of care and the hormones that will fix your quality of life and symptoms of hormone deficiency. Compared to popular hormone tests like the Dutch test, which is over $300 for a bunch of lab values you don't actually need to fix the problem, you invest 1/3 of that for the exact labs you need, can do them from the comfort of your own home, spend 0 time waiting in traffic or waiting rooms, work directly with a specialized team of medical professionals, don't have to haggle with doctors who invalidate you due to lack of education, or insurance companies who make you jump through hoops only to tell you they don't cover optimal health. And then repeat this cycle next month if they even alleviate your symptoms at all. Bottom line, this is a steal for the value we give you. But don't take my word for it. Here's what our SLAE clients have to say.
Honestly, for the first time in 10 years, maybe even 15, I have a sex drive. I was in the laundry room doing laundry and I smelled my husband's scent and I was like, oh, we have to take a step back because I was like, oh my God, that feeling of wanting sex has never been there for me. Or, I've been deficient in those hormones. It's important. We don't talk about it enough. And I think the more women I talk to and the more I say, especially moms, who are already exhausted and taking care of small children, I'm taking care of teenagers. The last thing we think about is our sexual health because we're so exhausted. We're just like, oh, it's one more thing someone needs from me. I literally jump out of bed. I'm like, okay, what is going on here? My bed's actually comfortable. So to wake up and not be hot and not be sweaty, that was huge in itself. When it comes to my thyroid, as of today, I've lost 25 pounds. If you need help, reach out via text. If you want to have an appointment or just, you have to go through Zoom. They've been great. Both of them. Alexa, she's amazing. She follows up. Even when I'm not even reaching out for a question. Hey, Hallie, just checking in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? It's like we're all a team working together to help Hallie out here. Do you know how good that feels to finally have somebody on your side?
SLAE Hormone Solutions is live in many states and we're expanding into many more. Follow the link in the description to get started and finally have a solution for hormonal hell without the BS of the mainstream medical industry. If we're not yet in your state, create an account anyway so that the second we're live in your state, we'll let you know. If you've made it this far and you're unsure whether or not you can trust what looks like a great value version of Chris Hemsworth, or think I'm just another predatory male influencer looking to take advantage of vulnerable women so I can fuel my Andrew Tate-esque lifestyle and get off to my own reflection, and maybe you're asking yourself, why do you really want to help women? I get it. I look the part. And I'll be the first to admit I am not perfect. My relationship history kind of looks like Chernobyl. I'm working on it. But what I can say is I've paid my dues in the women's weight loss and fitness coaching arena for almost 10 years. And despite hundreds of wild transformations over the years, after seeing how hormone deficiency in women impacts weight loss efforts, especially during perimenopause and beyond, I started learning and researching hormones. I even came out with a hormone support supplement called SLAE Hormone Support for PMS and perimenopause, and people actually really liked it. But I soon realized, 4 months into my e-commerce endeavors, that despite using clinically backed ingredients, no supplement can actually fix hormone dysfunction for things like hypothyroidism, PCOS, perimenopause, and menopause. Once your body decides it's time for menopause, your estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, the same hormones that gave you vitality, energy, sex drive, deep sleep, healthy skin and nails for almost 40 plus years are not coming back. If you don't make it, you have to take it. My own mother has been on bioidentical hormone replacement for over 20 years. She's a true pioneer in women's health and gave me a strong foundation of knowledge that I still use today. But I knew then that supplements would never be an actual solution. So I tanked the supplement company, sold the remaining inventory, and proceeded to dump my entire savings, literally every penny, into launching a bioidentical hormone replacement telemed service. And the results we're already getting with women just weeks into their hormone therapy are astounding. And it makes me extremely fulfilled to be an advocate for women in this way, since it's been largely ignored for decades. Now, you've heard me mention lifestyle a few times in this video. I'd be remiss if I didn't add to all the hormone knowledge I just gave you that none of this will make an impact if you're not also living a lifestyle that is congruent with producing healthy body composition. I give the exact lifestyle steps needed to lose body fat and keep it off in my video about the 4 phases of body transformation, which you can find right here. So check that out and make sure you subscribe to this channel because my next video is going to be all about what happens to your hormones during menopause. Enjoy.